Hello again, Structwap. It's less than a month left until we can play the full Diablo 4 game, and I'm bringing you another ready for launch Theorycraft. And this one is for the Necromancer. It's a setup based on what I liked playing in the beta. Mistplosion. Obviously one of the most popular things people were running in the beta. I tried it as well. I loved it as well. A combination of the explosive mist aspect, legendary aspect, together with Blood Mist and Corpse Explosion. So Blood Mist is triggering Corpse Explosion automatically. Obviously, I used a lot of building around Corpse Explosion rather than some other things, and I really enjoyed using Blood Search with this setup. So Mistplosion, even though it's a new build, I know you guys voted for the Dark Ward, and Dark Ward is gonna be the next build I make for the Necromancer, the Dark Ward 2.0. And as you might know, if you don't now you will, those builds are ready for launch, including Paragons, gem suggestions, suggestions for gear rolls to shortlist, all the skills, and even talking about the Book of the Dead and things like that, including a unique item I suggest for this build. All in all, I think you should enjoy this. If you don't, let me know in the comments what you don't like. Any feedback is welcome. Other than that, what else do I need to tell you about this build? I think it will get a little nerfed. They did nerf Corpse Explosion, but even considering that, it should be fine, and the build should be fine regardless of the nerfs. So buckle up, struck up, and let's go. It is good to start with the skill trees. So as you can see, this is what this would look like. People told me they would like to see me use the build calculator more, and I'll try to show the build calculator as much as possible. But when I talk about certain skills, for example, why I take this over that and stuff like that, I'd rather have them next to each other, so I can tell you, okay, that's why I didn't take one or either of those. Let's start from the top. Hemorrhage will be very temporary. You don't need hemorrhage after a certain point in the game when you have your skeletal mages generating essence, and when you have grim harvest, which is a passive that you get eventually. Let's see how many points invested. I think 6 points. So it's very early in the skill tree that you get grim harvest. So around here, Grim Harvest consuming a corpse generates essence. Once you combine this with the skeletal mages, cold mages, that each time your cold mages damage enemies with an attack, you gain 2 essence. You shouldn't have problems, and you shouldn't need a basic skill, which leaves another skill bar slot to be used. So the skills we would be using in our skill on our skill bar would be Blood Search, Corpse Explosion, Blood Mist, Corpse Tendrils, and Blood Wave, alongside the Race Skeleton skill. On my spreadsheets, I kind of changed the color of the skeletons and minions and all of that to be um, kind of matching more like the icons that you could see on the website. Those this kind of color scheme. And I changed those to be greenish. So hopefully that's a good change. But yeah, more about the Book of the Dead and stuff later. Let's go through all the skills and why I chose them and why I chose the upgrades I did for them. So for both Search Enhanced, and I prefer Supernatural over Paranormal. Sure, Paranormal is not bad, um, but I think getting that extra Fortify and Healing would be better overall. And that's still good damage extra here while you have Fortify, so I think it's better. But the other one is not a bad choice if you prefer it. Hued Flesh, I think it's a must-have, especially for a build like this, especially on boss fights. I think it says something about this being doubled against bosses. I'm not sure why I didn't add it, so let me add it. This is doubled against bosses. Um, So it's good to keep that one, especially during boss fights. You would have very little corpses unless you have huge flesh. Corpse explosion must have for this build. The build won't exist without those two skills. The macabre skills are the bread and butter of this one, together with the explosive mist legendary aspect. So I prefer Plagued Corpse Explosion. I've played this with the Darkness Corpse Explosion with Blighted. It's good, it's fun, but for this specific build, I think the Plagued would work better. Um, for Blood Mist, it doesn't matter which one you choose. I would prefer the Ghastly one because again they kind of made skeletons apparently from the patch notes to die more, so you might need more corpses. And again, more corpses is better because first of all, our corpse explosion consumes up to 5 corpses. If there's 5 corpses, corpse explosion will consume all 5 of them. So keep that in mind because we have that unique item. I mean, obviously, eventually you will get it, but not right away. But yeah, overall, Grim Harvest and Fueled by Death, those are extremely important for the build. And Death Embrace, I like those 3 points. It's not a must-have, but I think it fits very well for this build. Skeleton Mage Mastery, again, not a must-have, but since they nerfed the skeletons and other minions to be squishier, I think it would be welcome to have 45% for the Skeleton Mages. And we want those Skeleton Mages to do some freezing, to do some vulnerable stuff, to give us essence when we don't have corpses around. Corpse Tendrils with the Horrid Corpse Tendrils to make enemies vulnerable. Very great synergy here. You could go Blood Orbs, but I'd rather go vulnerable here. Gruesome Mending, 1 point in Gruesome Mending. 1 point is more than enough here. More than enough for this. We only need it to unlock Coalesced Blood. And for this one, you need to unlock, you need this node to unlock both of those. So keep that in mind. Whereas this node is only connected to Tides of Blood. And the calculator, if you can see it here, the calculator lets me do this. It doesn't require transfusion to get Tides of Blood, which is fine. But to get this one, I need a point here and I need a point here. Or I guess to get this one, you need a point here or a point here. Maybe let's put it that way. And yeah, we're getting Coalesced Blood, then Drain Vitality, and then Tides of Blood. Those are maxed out. And eventually, we're moving on to Necrotic Carapace. I think it's lovely. When a corpse is formed from your skills or your minions, fortify. Again, we won't fortify because we won't overpower. Blood Wave, Prime Blood Wave, and Supreme Blood Wave. It might seem like the most underwhelming skill in the beta, but again, we've only been able to reach level 25, so it's too early to judge it, but the Blood Orbs are nice. Getting more Blood Orbs might seem like, okay, just healing. Why do I need just healing? I have plenty of it. But you'll see later when we talk about the itemization and stuff, why we want as many Blood Orbs as possible. And Ratma's Vigor, increase your maximum life by 10% after being healthy for 15 seconds. Your next blood skill overpowers. And you want to stay healthy with this build. Eat your vegetables and fruits. For the summons or minions, we, as I mentioned, have skeletons. Skeletal, skeletal mages, code skeletal mages for this build. Upgrade 1 is what we take. Upgrade 1, which is, as you can see here, Shadow Mages, no, each time your Code Mages damage enemies with their primary attack, you gain 2 essence. We're sacrificing the Skirmishers, Skeletal Skirmishers, crit chance increased by 5, and we're sacrificing the Bone Golem for 30% increased crit damage for you. This by itself should be enough when it comes to explaining the skills. And again, this is a look at what you should see for the skill tree. For the unique item, as you can see, we are using a one-handed scythe called Black River. It's the more than obvious choice here. As each scythe, one-hand scythe, it gives life on kill. as a built-in item, but then the special affix, the unique affix is corpse explosion consumes up to 4 additional corpses around the initial corpse. So up to 5 total corpses will be consumed. It deals multiplicative and damage, multiplicative increased damage, and with a increased additive larger radius per additional corpse. So each additional corpse would increase the radius additively. So let's say if it gives you 10, it will be 10, then 20, 30, 40, and the damage will be multiplicatively added, multiplicatively um, increased. It also gives you a chunk, solid chunk of int, damage to healthy enemies, decent chunk there. One rank to the field by death passive, which FBD is over here. So that will become 16 increased damage for 4 seconds after consuming a corpse. And it also gives you between 2 and 4 ranks of corpse explosion. How do you understand what this is? My guess is 2 might be the lowest you get as a base item, 3 might be the sacred, and 4 might be the ascended. Or I could be wrong, and either 2 and 4 could be rollable, regardless of whether it's normal ascended, sacred ascended. In general, I think this is a great item, a great synergy for this setup, and all the bonuses on it speak loudly why. Next up, let's quickly mention a little bit about the legendary aspects slash Codex of powers. Not all of those would be Codex of Power aspects, so keep that in mind. I'll show you in a moment where on my spreadsheet some of those drop and what they do. But Helmet Exploiter aspect, Amulet Grasping Veins. On the chest, the Viscous. On the pants, aspect of the Embaumer. On the gloves, Blood Baited aspect, not to be mistaken with Blood Soaked, which we've put on our second ring. On boots, Codebringer's aspect. On ring 1, aspect of explosive mist, as I mentioned, blood soaked on the second ring. And on the first weapon, keep in mind the first weapon is a temporary aspect because the one-handed weapon is where the unique goes. So until the unique goes, I would suggest using Edge Master's aspect. It fits well. I'll show you in a moment why. And on the offhand, Cadaverous aspect. But if you decide, okay, until I get the unique, I'll be using a two-hander. You have to make choices. What do you sacrifice, Edge Master or Cadaverous? Sacrifice Edge Master. Keep Cadaverous on the setup. It's more important for the build. So if you're going for a two-handed, Cadaverous is there. Forget about Edge Master. But when you transition to one-handed offhand, use an offensive offhand. Don't use a shield because a shield won't let you. Put an offensive aspect. It will be just defensive or utility on a shield. If you want Cadaverous aspect, which you probably would want because it's great, it's let me show you what it does. Cadaverous consuming a corpse increases the damage of your next core skill. Again, it's not a must-have. It's not a must-have. If you by all means, if you can't find a good offhand and you want to play a shield necro for the block chance and other good stuff and another defensive or utility aspect, yes, it's a good choice to do so. That's why I put Cadaverous there because I know some people might want to get rid of it because it boosts the core skill. And the main source of damage won't be Blood Search, but Blood Search is good fewer source of damage. Main source of damage would be corpse explosions, triggered either automatically by Blood Mist or by corpse explosion directly. Now another thing that's good to know is what each of those aspects does. Blood Searches Nova echoes again after a short delay. Obviously, if you again don't want to focus too much on Blood Search, you could remove this one too. But it's good. I really like this one. I tested it in the beta and it was lovely. Explosive Mist, the most important thing for this setup. Without this, we don't have the build. It triggers corpse explosion on surrounding corpses when Blood Mist detonates a corpse. Its cooldown is reduced by 0.5 to 1.5 seconds. Blood Mist, and this one will be 5 corpses at once, up to 5 corpses at once because of the item. Then Blood Mist leaves a trail that lasts for 4 seconds and deals shadow damage per second to enemies who stand in it. Your movement speed is no longer reduced while Blood Mist is active. We don't care much about the first bonus, but this bonus is lovely. Otherwise, you're moving 20% slower, and ideally, you wouldn't want that, especially during a boss fight if you're stuck in mist form. Of course, you can remove the mist form, but again, I'd rather have this extra movement speed reduction removed. So, Grasping Veins is amazing. That's why it's in the amulet. 10 to 20% additive increase crit strike chance immediately becomes 15 to 30% because the 50% effectiveness increased on the amulet. And it's for 6 seconds after you cast Corpse Tendrils. And remember, Corpse Tendrils makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. So you would make the most out of it by having that increased crit chance. And it also gives you increased crit damage to enemies damaged by Corpse Tendrils. So it's just the perfect set me up for death skill to cast before a fight. And it also pulls enemies, which by all means, I love me a Saki. So, Edge Master's aspect skills deal up to 24 to 34% multiplicative increased damage based on available primary resource when cast. And with this build, you should have a lot of the cases where you are at a maximum resource, especially as long as there's corpses, you will be at maximum resource. And you have increased crowd control duration, which we don't care much about, but with the exploiter, the most important thing why I always take exploiter is it gives you extra damage against unstoppable. Don't underestimate unstoppable enemies. Bosses would spend most of their time being unstoppable. If you're so, unless you have a massive group that's hardly all win on the crowd control. And the same goes for most of the elites. When they're unstoppable, you'd rather have that extra damage if you can't crowd control them. And then this one. This one is, I think, something nice. It's not a must-have. You could swap it out for something else. But every 10 seconds, the code mages cast a blizzard that deals cold damage and continuously chills enemies. It seems like a very good choice for that setup. And you have maximum 2 more skeleton mages, which again, I think a lovely choice for this setup. So we have more resource generation when there's no corpses, as long as you have summons, because you do need corpses for summons. Um, and then consuming a corpse has 20 to 30% chance to spawn a blood orb. This combined with certain other bonuses that give you damage after consuming a blood orb, which you'll see eventually later, is definitely a good choice. So for the sockets, I've shortlisted some stuff. First, let me show you all the socket possibles. Diamond, Ruby, Emerald, Skull, Amethyst, Topaz, Sapphire. And what I decided to pick as a short list would be, for weapons, I would suggest Ruby, Sapphire, Skull, or Emerald, which means overpower damage, critical strike damage to crowd controlled, critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. Remember, Corpse Tendrils can make them vulnerable. Or life on kill. I wouldn't recommend ultimate skill damage because it's not a big factor of the build. It's not a major source of damage, so it would be a waste to go diamond here. For the armor, skull, or sapphire, healing received is good, and so is damage reduction while fortified. In fact, you should be fortified a lot of the time with this setup. And then for the jewelry, diamond is your best friend unless a certain resistance is so much falling behind than the others, or let's say 2 or 3 of your resistances is falling behind, the others are fine. Obviously, then pick the right one. And you have options. You have poison resistance, fire resistance, shadow resistance, lightning, or cold to pick, which all of them would work well with this setup. I've included this information in the spreadsheet. I've added that information. If you don't visit the website, you can find it here. So this time around, I split the gear rows into 3 categories. I've got the orange ones in on my website, which on my spreadsheet are the white text ones. And those are the highest priority in my opinion. Then after that, there is another category with minion related bonuses, which again should be a little let's say a little like an extra bonus that you might consider if the minions are actually not dying all the time and if the minions are worth investing into affixes for. So this one is kind of like a potentially good, but not sure about it. And then we have the other category, the last category, which is stats that are lower priority than those here. But that is not to say that this list here is in order of priority. It's not like this one has higher priority than that one. I mean, I tried to do it in such a way, but I can guarantee that, for example, something that's at the bottom of this list wouldn't be just as good as something at the top. And then I see all of those are equally important. So in general, the keywords here are critical strike or crit damage, lucky hit chance, core slash macabre, priority on the macabre rather than the core, and blood. Then you have certain things like cooldown reduction, but you're looking for critical strike chance or critical strike damage, either in general, or with blood skills, or with macabre skills, or with core skills. You're looking for lucky hit chance, or with those skills I mentioned, or with that type of damage, the blood damage. Obviously, resistance to all elements, cooldown reduction. Then elites, another keyword. You have damage to elites. You have blood damage to elites. You have damage with XYZ skills, in our case, Macabre or Call. For two elites, you have certain bonuses after killing elites, such as crit strike chance, damage, etc., damage reduction. So overall, those, in my opinion, are more important because where things matter in those games is boss fights and elites. Elites count as elites. Bosses also count as elites. Loading screens told me that in Diablo 4. So bosses also count under that elites category. But when it says bosses, it only means bosses, not elites. So keep that in mind. I think it's clear regarding those stats. You can check all of them on the screen. They are also on my spreadsheet. On the Paragon part of this video. It will be the longest, so prepare yourself, maybe grab some popcorn. But keep in mind, as usual, I include two versions of this. A version where you have kind of XY level, in this case level 96, without any points from renown, and then the maxed out version. And as you can see, there is a difference. This is version 1. This is at level 96 without the 20 renown points. If you have the 20 Paragon points from renown, you should be able to have this at level 91. So at level 91, your Paragons would look like that, because by that time you should have all renown Paragon points farmed up. This would be what it would look like at level 100. So you can see this is new, and I filled up some of the other boards as missing nodes around certain clusters. Let's start one by one to give you an idea of which way to take the skill points, the Paragon points in. First, you're going here, Bish Bash Bosh, taking damage, life, damage, life. Don't take this life, of course. So over here, we would be putting something that requires intelligence. Intelligence is what gives us skill damage, and it also gives us, if I'm not mistaken, resistances on the necro. Now, Blood Orbs fortify you for 6.7 of your maximum life. And eventually, you could return to get that extra 20 intelligence. I didn't. I didn't return because there were more important things. We have plenty of fortify from other places. The main reason why I took this one is 240% bonus to all magic nodes within range. Which means you don't need to take as much more intelligence. We're fine. We're just focusing on those magic nodes here being stronger. So this from 5% turns into 17. This one as well. This one as well. And the willpower here is 24 instead of 7. You could take some of those other ones, but it's not worth it in my case. So just rush to the next board. And now on this board, which if you want to know which board this is, it's the Flesh Eater. Consuming 5 corpses grants 40% increased damage for 6 seconds. Remember our unique item, it consumes up to 4 more corpses at the same time. So you can consume up to 5 total corpses with Corpse Explosion, and this immediately triggers this 40% increased damage multiplicative for 6 seconds. This is just lovely build around me synergy for this unique that we've selected. Now on the way to there, we're taking damage to injured enemies and crit strike damage around it, all of it. Then you quickly take this, and then you keep going up. And over here, you make this turn and take this dex. And then over here, we are taking something that requires dex, if it wasn't obvious already. We're taking the Gravekeeper, which, when it's maxed out, is 240% bonus to all rare notes, to all the yellow notes. And if you get 25 dex within range, you do 2% increased multiplicative damage up to 12% for every Quo's corpse. Obviously, you won't have as much Quo's corpses all the time, but you would have them right before you detonate them, which will give you that increased damage. And since you detonate them in bunches of 5, this means you won't just detonate them one, then one, then one, then one. And the damage of corpse explosion, the way it works is, let's say you only have 6 corpses around you. Instead of detonating one corpse for one corpse explosion and then another one, and every time you do that, you lose 2%, you would detonate all 5 at once, and all 5 will benefit from that maxed out 12%. And of course, at the end, you will be left with just 2% because there will be one corpse left. But I hope you understand the synergy I'm trying to explain here. Now, we decided to go, instead of investing into something that requires too much dex and stuff, again, 29 dex is easy to get. 7 here, 7 here, there's 5 here, 5 here, and there's some more here. And this gives us, as you said, as you saw, increased the bonuses to the rare notes, which means this one 57% damage to elites, and another 57 if you get the bonuses. And since it's early, it should be easy to get those bonuses. And it also gives you 34 int. This one gives you another 34 int, and resistance to all elements increased, pretty solid. Keep in mind, on the hardest difficulty, that supposedly will be tier 4, world tier 4, I think you would have 80% minus to resistances. On world tier 3, it's 20 minus. On world tier 4, it's 40, then it's 60 on tier 5. And if tier 6 is gonna exist, as we knew from some time ago, as from thesis, you would have minus 80. If they don't add world tier 6, then that's fine. Tier 5 is fine. Minus 60 to all resistances, you would still want as much as possible. And then you're moving on the way to exit here, you're taking this one. 10% chance to execute non-injured enemies, 4% attack speed, and up to another 10% for 20. Then you have another 15, that means 35% chance to execute non-injured enemies additive. So it's not 5, then 5% of that 5, it's 5, 5, 5 added to 15, and this one added to up to 20. Next up, you have Scent of Death, another corpse-related board. With at least 2 corpses nearby, you gain 15 damage reduction. With no corpses nearby, you do increased damage. Obviously, this is gonna be very good, regardless of the case, whether there are or aren't corpses. You get those bonuses, one or the other. So in either case, it's a win. Damage to injured enemies and armor are what you take on the way to here. But I would suggest, instead of taking this right away, maybe you could just go here, rush this one. And then after this, rush over here, pick this one. And over there, as you can see, I've used something not because of the Imbiber, which is you gain 30% increased potion healing. I didn't pick it because of that. I picked it because for every 5 willpower purchased while within range, you deal 12% increased damage while healthy. Additive 12% increased damage while healthy. For this build, you would be healthy a lot of the time. And the added bonus of increased potion healing is not bad, but the main reason I did this was for the healthy stuff. After you take that, obviously, you want more damage to injured enemies, intelligence, some willpower here to get that extra bonuses. Over here, just so we can exit, I've taken these decks and armor. But before you go and exit here, remember we skipped those two. Return, take those two, and then move on and take those here, which is crit strike damage, damage to healthy enemies, crit strike damage, and a bunch of other damage to healthy enemies, crit strike damage. After that, you move on here, and before you go there, go down, take this crit strike damage, potion healing, crit strike damage, crit strike damage, crit strike damage, and move on. And next you have Blood begets blood. Blood orbs grant 5% increased damage up to 15% for 5 seconds. Remember when I said that blood wave is not as great and is not as good, but at least it gives you blood orbs? Well, that's why you might want those blood orbs. When you use blood wave, you immediately get 3 blood orbs, which is immediately giving you this bonus, the 15% increased damage for those 3 blood orbs for 5 seconds, which is solid. On the way to this, you would go down here, maybe take those 2 before you continue. And then go here, rush that one. Alternatively, you could skip this one first and then just go do this. And as you can see, you could take this point here, go there, and eventually remove this point and do it that way. Or you could just go the slow way and take it that way. Here we're putting Undaunted, which is another great one, which gives you gain up to 12% damage reduction the more Fortify you have, if you get enough willpower. And again, with this build, you should be always at good amount of Fortify. And for every 5 willpower purchase within range, you deal plus 9.6% increased damage while fortified, which again, another place where you would want to take as much willpower as possible. Here, Blood Orb Healing and Intelligence. Again, Blood Orb Healing good, again, to help keep you healed, healthy, to have damage while you're healthy, and to fortify yourself. And then Overpower damage. Overpower shouldn't be underestimated. The bonuses to Overpower are pretty solid. Damage for X seconds after picking a Blood Orb, obviously good. Eventually, you go down here for Overpower damage and damage. You really want that one. In fact, you should probably take this one before you take that one here. And eventually, you would say, okay, this is it. But this is it up until level 91 or 96 if you don't have bonus renown. After that, you add another board. You would see you need to rotate this. You need to rotate this board because this one was here. Now you rotate this one to go up there and connect. You see the difference? Otherwise, you won't be able to do the proper connection, the good connection that I figured out would be the best connection. And then you go over here and do 10% damage, fortified generation, damage while fortified, damage while fortified, fortified generation. And then you get Bloodbath. Attacks that are guaranteed to overpower deal 50% increased overpower damage. After that, it is Fill In. Filling In. This one was 29 willpower. Well, now it's 49. This one, if you remember, now it's 54 increased willpower. I would prioritize getting this one first, then this one. So get all those bonuses here and get all that willpower here before you get the willpower needed there. As well as this one. This one you don't need to feel as much, remains as it is. This one you don't need to feel as much, remains as it is. So hopefully you see the big picture here. You see what the changes are. You can feel free to pause and double check if you want to screenshot it or whatever. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer want to be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end, Struck Web. Keep it cool until next time and goodbye.